Hayla, I gotta tell you, this is actually a little backwards for me because you're one of the first interviews, one of the first video interviews I've done where I actually met you in person first, and now we're doing a video interview. During the pandemic, it was kind of backwards.
Yeah, 100%. Usually it was just you'd meet people first on Zoom, wouldn't it? I mean, the amount of Zoom things that I did over the lockdown period now, it feels strange seeing people in real life, you know? And it's weird, isn't it? You think like, oh, there's no screen, you're like real person. Yeah.
How to have conversations again is so weird.
And you can't just be like, I'll be back in a sec. Because you're actually just there and we're just going to go and get a drink.
And then dial up on Zoom from one end of the bar.
Yeah.
It was so funny the first time we met in Vegas because you were kind of sitting in the corner and I didn't hear your name at first when you were introduced. And then when you came up in conversation, you know, it was awesome meeting you. And then when we finally realized who you were, we were like, oh, Hayla!
I think it's like there's so many people, I was just like, hello, getting everybody's names, you know? And I think, yeah, like I remember when we were all kind of like, oh yeah, hello, I'm actually here.
Once again, leading to the awkwardness of speaking in person.
Oh.
Hayla, welcome to America's Dance 30.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's talk about the incredible success of your number one smash, Escape, with Kx5. Yeah. Contender for Song of the Year right now, let me just say.
Thank you very much.
The history of this song is crazy because it was number one 2 weeks in a row, fell to number two, rebounded back to number one, fell to number two, and now it's back at number one for the fourth time.
Yeah, it's absolutely. The reception that we've been getting from this track is something that, you know what, and obviously when you write something and you kind of put it together, you know it's good, you get a good feeling about it, but obviously it's up to the masses what happens in a way, sort of like throwing paint up against a wall and hoping it sticks, you know. But I mean, I've always had faith in the track, but the response is incredible.
When the song first came out, we got a chance to catch up with Joel and Ryan and find out their perspective on it. But before we dive deeper into it from the singer-songwriter perspective of Escape, let's get to know Hayla a little better with Finky's favorites.
Okay.
So when we met for the first time in Vegas, you were actually there to perform with the debut of Kx5 at EDC Vegas, which is incredible. What was your favorite thing about Vegas?
Do you know, actually, I went to the old part of Vegas. Everybody there was so much going on. Like, I think we were there for the 90s festival. Everybody could sing. We went to a karaoke bar, actually. That was good. But just going around, it's just such a spectacle. It's so much to take in. But I genuinely think that when we went down to Fremont Street.
That was your favorite time?
Well, no. I mean, like Vegas itself, obviously performing.
Forget about EDC Vegas and performing in front of tens of thousands of people.
That was definitely the highlight. But Vegas itself, just seeing Vegas itself, because I'd never been to Vegas before as well, taking that in as the spectacle that it is was something else. But let's be honest, the highlight of the entire thing was performing at EDC. Obviously, that was like something that I can't even put into words to express how incredible that was. Just I wanted to say how well Ryan and Joel treated me, like when I was over in Vegas, and just the hospitality that I experienced with them. And yeah, I was treated so well. They were absolutely lovely. To meet them the first time was incredible. And I just can't thank them enough, really. I just think that everything whilst I was over in Vegas was just above and beyond amazing. So
well, I'm cutting this all out because I can't stand them, so I'm just going to chop this all. No, the whole Vegas experience with getting to have dinner with you and Joel and Ryan and Mick and all the management and everybody, that was so incredible. Was that your first time meeting them in person?
Yeah, actually, we'd had a few rehearsals, maybe actually even only one rehearsal just before that dinner. So I'd met them just ever so slightly just beforehand. But yeah, this trip that I went over to Vegas was the very, very first time I'd ever met them in person.
Now, forgive this question if it's a stupid question, but were you aware of Kaskade and deadmau5 prior to this?
Oh, yes, I was. Yeah, I was very aware.
So what was it like meeting these legends for the first time?
Quite, like, not intimidating because I didn't find them intimidating at all. They were so accommodating. But internally I was like, oh my God.
Same, totally same.
Yeah, I was like, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much. You know, like, I just didn't know. I don't think I messed it up too much. I was like, you know.
That was on the inside. You were fine on the outside.
Oh yeah, I was like a rock on the outside. I was like, got this. Inside, I was like, oh my days. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm thinking back to the first time I met Ryan. He came into the station and he's so low key that it was almost intimidating because he's so relaxed. And then Joel is on the other end of the spectrum where he's so quiet because he's kind of introverted in his own way that makes him kind of intimidating.
I just didn't know what to expect at all, to be honest, because I suppose I've seen the performers, but I've never met the person, if that makes sense. So I know that, like, people wear different hats, don't they? And like the performance mode comparatively to like who you are on your downtime, even though I suppose rehearsals aren't really downtime, but you kind of don't really know what to expect. And especially when you kind of meet, kind of like they're legends, aren't they? So yeah.
Now you know what we as radio folk go through when we're meeting you guys as artists, because it's kind of intimidating at first because you guys are so amazing.
Hats off to you, because I would be like, yeah.
I think I might have been like that in the bar, but we don't need to talk about that.
No, you're perfect.
But let's put that aside. Did you zip line down Fremont?
Do you know what? Honestly, I was close. I nearly did, and I was like, honestly, yeah. We were like, oh, can we do it? And then they were like, oh, you can't take phones. And I was like, well, I can't video it. It's like it never happened. Do you know what I mean? If I can't video it, did it ever happen? I can't show anyone.
Oh my God! Hashtag 2022.
Love we live in.
I'll tell you, I actually did zip line down Fremont Street, and it was kind of disappointing. So you didn't really miss out. Yeah,
that's good to know.
It was a little disappointing. But next time you're in Vegas, hopefully I'll be there too, because one of the big things to do is to jump off of the stratosphere. That's what we need to do.
What?
You're like, wait, what? So the stratosphere is like 800 feet up, and you literally step off of it and zip line down. Would you be up for that?
I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Until you're right on the edge, you never know how you're going to feel. So at this point, I'm like sitting at home. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure, I can do it. No problem. Well, speaking in Vegas, I didn't realize that when we were there and when we met that it was your birthday week. So happy belated birthday.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it was. And honestly, like, what an amazing place to be for your birthday as well.
And performing at EDC Vegas. So what is your favorite birthday gift you've ever gotten?
My dad got me once. He found me a doll's house, I think. And it was one of those, I remember getting it. And I think that they'd sort of really put loads of effort into making the rooms look really cute. And it's something that I actually still have now. If I ever have kids, I've got it in the loft still in my mum and dad's house.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was just like it was lovely because I just remember we didn't have much money. And it was one of those things, it was like, I can't remember where my dad found it, but but it was something that I've just cherished and I've kept. And it's something I think actually from my childhood. It's probably the longest lasting present that I've still kept.
Isn't it incredible how like our birthday gifts from our childhood were so good? Like I remember getting this huge stuffed animal. It was a Smurf. It was a stuffed Smurf. I don't remember who gave it to me, but whoever gave it to me put it in this huge like refrigerator box. And so I opened that up and it was a smaller box inside and a smaller box inside until I got to the Smurf.
Can I just ask, were the freezer boxes part of your gift as well, or were they like, I'll have them back?
Yeah, I had to give that back to them.
Keep on going. Keep on going. Never mind.
That was the part of the surprise, which actually built it up even better. Now, Hayla, you are an incredible singer-songwriter. Do you remember the first song you ever wrote?
I mean, when I was a kid, I've sang from a really early age, but only kind of to myself. But I did write songs, just, like little scraps of paper. But I remember the one that I wrote, the most poignant one, probably when I was around, I don't know, maybe 13, 14, something like that. And it's something I could probably sing it back, actually. But I just remember I did actually sing it to people, and people were kind of like, I think that's quite good. And then I was like, okay, thank you. And I didn't, but I do remember that feeling of being kind of like, oh, okay, that's something that I can do. I can express myself that way. Because I find, this sounds weird, but I find public speaking actually a lot harder than singing to loads of people,
Preach.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, I think that finding my words on paper for melody actually like helped me articulate my feelings a bit more to a degree. So it was actually like a quite nice little, like, okay, I can do that. Like a nice little nod to something that later on would actually become, fortunately, my career,
It's so funny you mentioned that about public speaking, because I was literally just speaking to somebody in DM about how much I hate public speaking too. That's why I got into radio, to be behind the microphone, not in front of people. And so, like, when I get on stage, I'm great, but just like the thought of speaking in front of people, like my hands are clammy right now just thinking about it.
Yeah, honestly, same. I think it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, I would have thought you wouldn't have had any issues considering because you're on radio, but I suppose, if you're just on your own in the booth and nobody's there, then...
Exactly. And now all of a sudden radio's turned into doing videos and live Facebooks and live Instagrams. It's like, this isn't why I got into radio. Now,
it's a nice add-on, though. Yeah.
Right? Now, you just got done performing at Creamfields, which was incredible. Do you have a favorite place that you've performed yet?
I mean, apart from EDC, because it's second to none, genuinely, apart from obviously there, because that was something that I will remember for the rest of my life, But I do love, in London, Brixton Academy. It's an old theatre, and it's somewhere that I've seen some amazing gigs at. So I think when I first performed there, which actually wasn't that long ago, I felt, I don't know, this sounds a bit... But I just felt a bit like, I felt kind of the presence of the other musicians that I'd seen on stage before, They're still with us and everything, not like, but...
Pour one out.
But, I genuinely, I think that venue, it brought back some really lovely memories of being an audience member and watching gigs and then thinking, wow, I'm on the other side of this. It was a very... lovely and humbling feeling, actually.
How it's full circle now. That's incredible.
Yeah, like something that a couple of years ago even I probably would have been like, nah.
Total side note, and I don't remember if it was your manager Mick that mentioned this to me, but is it true that you are so talented that you don't even need monitors when you're performing?
They're good to have. I have done gigs before where there's not been any monitors or in-ear monitors, and I've just kind of had to go off the out a bit. So I'd be like, okay, I can kind of hear it, and then I'll just have to, so I have done gigs like that before. That's
incredible because, when I'm singing in the shower, it's nothing compared to what I think it sounds like. So you performing without monitors.
It's not, I wouldn't advise it, I wouldn't say, guys, if you want to hone your vocal skill, you best do it without being able to hear yourself at all. But it's a good learning curve,
Yeah, that's definitely jumping off the deep end.
Just a little bit, yeah. But I've had good feedback after that, after those kind of gigs have happened. So yeah, they're nice to have though. So if anyone's listening, I would still like them. if possible.
Finally, in Finky's favorites, of course, your number one smash, Escape with Kx5. What is Hayla's favorite way to escape?
Oh, walking on the beach.
Oof.
Yeah.
Such a great answer.
Yeah, I'm from a little place near Liverpool called Formby, which has got a really nice beach. It's UK beaches, so the water is freezing. You wouldn't want to, you can go in, if you dare. But every time I go to that beach, I just feel really centered. And I think like just going back home, I don't go home a lot, but whenever I do, I try and make it my mission to just go and have a bit of headspace down by the water. And I just feel that kind of grounding sort of headspace coming back. It's really,
It's just
definitely.
so peaceful. Absolutely. I completely get that because, I mean, obviously being in Florida with the beaches, I completely get that. Yeah.
You're probably a little bit most of the mud, but
It's a lot warmer than the beaches you're talking about. But let's talk about your number one smash, Escape. So like I mentioned, when the song first dropped, we got a chance to find out the perspective from Joel and Ryan, how the demo got into Joel's hands. He kind of reached a wall and kind of turned it over to Ryan, who kind of finished it out. But as a singer-songwriter, how was the song born on your end?
Well, it was one of those over lockdown. There was a lot of songs that were written. And I have to say that during that time and feeling so isolated, I started to feel like I was getting quite a lot of like vivid dreams, thinking about how best to maybe reach out to the masses and sort of bring back a bit of unity. I know that sounds funny, but it was one of those tracks that I always absolutely loved after it had been written. The headspace that I was in for it was definitely trying to write something that people could emotively connect to, trying to make something that people would hopefully end up finding, even if it didn't mean sort of, obviously the lockdown situation we were in around the world, such a strange thing for us to all be involved in. And actually, in a strange way, being so isolated, there was kind of unity within that because we were all going through it.
Right.
But it was one of those tracks that definitely, when I was writing it, headspace-wise, it could potentially have multiple meanings for people depending on what everybody's situation is, because everybody's different. But for me, it definitely was, the spark in the room with somebody when you just feel like you could be the thing that I could just escape with. You could be the reason why I feel like I'm coming back. You could be the reason why, I would feel free again. And it can also become an emotion. So I kind of thought when I was writing it, it was definitely something that I felt instantly like I had a connection with it once it was written. I was a bit like, wow, I didn't expect that to come out like that, if that makes sense. Not that it wasn't a skill set of writing and things like that, but it was just, I think that funnily enough now the poignancy of the lyrics probably have more weight, considering now it's, because it was written some time ago,
How long ago was it actually written?
So it was started out in like 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, some time ago, yeah. And I think actually having that space between, now looking back on like when it was written and the headspace I was in at that time as well, I'd just been through a huge breakup, and I wasn't able to go back to the house that I had with my ex-partner because of the lockdown constraints. And I think that I just kind of needed, the outlet of songwriting was so helpful. I bought a laptop, I bought a mic, and I was able to just at least make that a bit more of a diary process. So when this song presented itself and manifested its way into what it is now, but I genuinely think that it was something that I now look back on, and the headspace that I was in at that period of time was, incredibly isolating. And I just felt like I just needed to be with people again to feel not like myself,
Now, because I write poetry, actually, I haven't written one in a long time, but that aside, a lot of times...
you should.
I should right now. Actually, hold on. Let's put this interview on hold. I'm going to start writing one right now. No.
Go for it.
So, sometimes when I'm writing a poem, I'll go back and change some lines. It just takes me, I hit like a wall and I have to go back to it. Do you do that with songs as well?
It sometimes does happen that way, yeah. Sometimes I have to say with this one, that didn't happen with this. This was done and dusted. But you do end up finding sometimes with a track that you just think like, oh, if I could make that lyric just ever so slightly a little bit like less clunky or maybe a bit cleverer. That's all right, there we go.
Don't put that in your next song.
No, I was just thinking that would be a dead good word to put in there, wouldn't it? Yeah. But you sometimes you kind of listen to the song and you just go, oh, that line, if we could just twist that ever so slightly to make it a bit smarter, and then it just makes the track. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but when you've been writing poetry, if you sit at it and look at it for quite some time and you kind of being like, oh, you need the space between like the last time you saw it, and then If you see the same thing again, then you know it needs changing.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where I'll just put it aside. I'm like, okay, I got to get away from this. Like I'm just thinking about it too much. So you kind of just revisit it later.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, sometimes even that breather, you could be like making dinner or whatever, and you just think, stroke of genius. It just comes in like a lightning bolt.
Now, I think I may have asked you this when we met in Vegas, but was there a lot of difference between the demo of Escape and when it was finalized? Like, were there verses taken out or anything?
I think the only thing that might have been taken out is just a little bit of harmony, but you do hear that anyway. I think it's on the second verse as the harmony section comes in. I'm a sucker for adding so many harmonies. I'm like, if I can add more, I'll add more. But sometimes less is more, you know? And I think that definitely their approach to what they've done with the harmonies, I think, is really tasteful. So I think that the only thing that I can think that's changed really, I think, is just maybe an ad-lib here or there. But mainly just that I think the harmonies on the second verse have just been like compacted into, I think, the perfect section, really, because it really starts to breathe a bit more where they put it.
And it's actually funny that you mentioned the harmony, because when I was driving home yesterday listening to the song, there's a part where there's a lot of harmony, and I was thinking, is that you singing with yourself, or is that somebody else harmonizing?
No, that's me. Yeah.
Amazing.
Just me and me. Yeah.
You just have such an amazing voice. It's incredible.
Oh, thank you so much.
Congratulations on the #1 smash. So what is next for Hayla?
So I do have my own solo tracks coming out very soon. I have just signed a deal, which I've actually, you're the first person to get that information. So I'm not going to go any further than that. But,
wait a second. Mick isn't on here. Mick has already been dumped off. He won't hear any of this.
Sorry, Mick. I hope that's all right for me to say. It's not been formally announced yet, really. So that has happened, but I won't say anymore. I do have quite a few singles lined up, ready to go. I think my next single is due for release in the next month or so, actually. So watch this space. It's a lovely, it's a really, I like to think, quite a beautiful melodic track as well. So I think it links up quite nicely with Escape as well.
And it's solo you? It's just Hayla?
Just me, yeah. Just little old me.
I mentioned to Carrie Vance from One Music Ave that with Escape, it was kind of the first time I had heard of your name, which I apologize for that, because I know you've been doing music for years now.
Yeah. In the UK, I mean, I suppose I've been doing things like a lot of collaborations. I've done things with Example, Wilkinson, so a bit of drum and bass, bit of house, bit of popular music, obviously. But there's been quite a few collaborations that have happened over the years, but this is the first one for me that's crossed over into the US, actually.
Was it overwhelming, the success that you had with this song, because you've been doing it, for, let's say, 6 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, because I think my first release, I think, as an artist doing this kind of world, from that point to now, definitely I've never, like, the response that we've had from this, I've never experienced before. And I don't feel overwhelmed just yet. I think that sometimes when do I? Yeah, I think I probably do. There we go. I was just talking to myself there, so I definitely do. I think it's been so wonderful, though. The response even from my peers over here has been so lovely, and just to see it flying, really, and doing what I feel the track deserves to do, because it's such a beautiful, and I don't, I'm not saying that just because it's something that I've written and I've sang on. I think the way that they've done the production on it as well, it's been treated so well. I can actually listen to it quite happily. Sometimes when you listen to a track, like you're saying, if you heard your poetry over and over again, you think, okay, I'm done now.
Yeah.
But I still, like, with me, I mean, like, if I read my poetry over and over again, sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm done now. Like, that's, but this track, what are you laughing at?
No, I'm just laughing because I completely agree with you.
I keep on finding things that they've done differently to it, like just melodically and harmonically. I think it's just something that I never tire of listening to myself.
I honestly can never get tired of listening to it, and I'm honestly glad that Joel turned it over to Ryan, because the breakdowns in it are so beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. I think it's nice that they persevered with it too, and just decided to keep on going with it. And honestly, it's amazing that they took it. That's something that I'm still blown away by, that they wanted it, And I think what they've done and what they've created out of the track and the life that they've given it is just, yeah, it's amazing.
Congratulations on your number one with K5.
Thank you.
I know you also DJ as well, correct?
I do DJ as well, yes. I DJ and sing, so yeah. So I can kind of back myself.
Well, if you ever need anybody to harmonize with you on stage, just let me know. I'll be there for you.
I will get a mic set ready. Brian, I expect you side of stage, yes.
Well, Hayla, of course, everybody can follow you at Hayla Sings. Is that on all socials?
Yes, it is. Yeah. All socials at Hayla Sings. Yeah.
Hayla, I'm so honored that this is your first U.S. interview. So thank you so much for being with us on America's Dance 30.
Ryan, thank you so much for having me, honestly, and for asking me. It means a lot.